and inspire, bringing our visitors into a world of beauty, cultivation, education, and connection. A botanical garden is an official area dedicated to the display, cultivation, and collection of a wide range of plants, all labeled with a scientific name. Here at NBG, we are a nationally recognized nonprofit as well as an accredited museum. Themed gardens. Now, this first garden we are entering is called our Bicentennial Rose Garden. You'll see it here mostly on my right side. This is a garden that was dedicated in 1976 as a tribute to our nation's 200th birthday. This rose garden is one of the largest on the East Coast, spanning 3 acres, full of 1,700 roses, covering 402 species and varieties.
1976 was
now, typical bloom time is in May, or just in time for Mother's Day, and again in October, but you will see,
she was probably 3 years
because
old.
of climate change, we have some overzealous roses that are already greeting us here in April. Now, fun fact to know is that roses do not always look like these ones. They actually used to look more like wildflowers. But thanks to Empress Josephine of France, yes, Napoleon's wife, they became a big deal. She collected over 200 varieties from around the world, and today breeders like David Austin are spending millions of dollars on new hybrids like the Juliet Rose. Now you will see some construction underway in front of me. This is our Garden of Tomorrow project. This is where we're going to house our 26,000 square foot Perry Conservatory, which are these 2 glass biomes. The first one closest to us being the tropical, and the second one being the desert. They will hold the top endangered plants in the world. Now notice the Avionis skywalk leading from outside of the tropical biome. It provides a beautiful bird's eye view of our rose garden and leads all the way to our 3rd building that has the Bat and Sky Meadow on top. Now, something to know is that our Garden of Tomorrow project is completely privately funded, having over 2,100 generous donors, raising to over $50 million. If you're interested to learn more and or donate, you can go to the website gardenoftomorrow.org and visit our visitor service team. This 3rd building is going to be our Brock Entry Pavilion. It's going to house a new event space, our farm to table bistro, as well as our new visitor service hub. Now that farm to table bistro is named Reeds, based off of the Reeds on Logs piece by Gail Julie, which will be displayed in this pavilion. We'll also have more of his sculptures throughout our Garden of Tomorrow project. I'm pausing real quick, just wanting to see where the EMS truck is going. I'm going to pause briefly. Now, if you look at this crosswalk here and look at the hill on my left, you'll see what we call our airport berm. At the top, you'll be able to watch planes taxi, as well as listen to radio chatter from the Norfolk International Airport. It also acts as a noise and sound pollution barrier between our 2 campuses. You'll also find one of our azaleas called Suzuki azalea, which roughly translates to Finland and Japanese, referring to their bloom time in May, which is considered to be 1 month later than most azalea species. On my right, you'll see this building, and this road here, if you kind of look to the right behind this building, you'll find our Japanese garden, which was dedicated in 1963 as a to our sister city, Kitakyushu, Japan. It is designed with the traditional hill-to-pond style, with cloud pruning present as well, which was common to see in traditional Japanese tea houses. This also sits parallel to one of my favorite collections that we have here, called the Bonsai Collection. So if tiny trees bring you joy, definitely stop on by. On my left, we'll be talking about our next garden called Mirror Lake. It's going to be the largest garden strip I'll be talking about here. Now, Mirror Lake is home to 22 acres, 15 of which being from the original 30 acres. And to learn about Mirror Lake, I'm going to jump into our history. So we were founded in 1938 during the Great Depression when Tommy Thompson, our city director at the time, wanted to create an azalea garden that would rival the one in Charleston, South Carolina, who was making a profit, a pretty big deal, during the Great Depression. So he hired Fred Hewitt, a master gardener, to create what was then called the Azalea Garden Project. Now, the original grant of $76,000 hired $76,000, which would be around $1.7 million today. With that, he hired 200 African American women and 20 African American men who planted the garden that you see to our left. They planted it with 70 cents an hour and planted over 4,000 azaleas. Today, there are around 5,000 garden wide, all ranging to be over 80 years old. If you look at the back of this clearing on our left, you will see what we call breaking ground. She is here to commemorate the WP workers who worked so hard to create the garden we all love today. There is a plaque, a name plaque nearby with the names of the known workers. And if you happen to see a name is missing, definitely bring it to our attention. Now this next garden I'll be talking about will be on my right, called the Hofheimer Camellia Garden. This is the largest camellia collection on the southeastern side of the United States. And was started as a joint project with the VCS, or Virginia Camellia Society. Garden-wide, you'll find around 1,700 camellias, and in this area, around 750. Our camellia collection is also rated as a Garden of Excellence by the International Camellia Society, which is a big deal since we only have 40 of those globally, 6 being in North America. Alright, this is going to be our first stop on our tour. Gardens you can get to from here are going to be our picnic shelter on my left, the Camellia Garden on my right, and Mirror Lake behind us. Now if you head to Mirror Lake, be sure to look both ways because it is open to traffic. Alright, we are continuing forward. On my left here, you'll see some of our hydrangeas. Typical bloom time is going to be in June, so there's no blooms as of yet. They're just kind of these scraggly bushes. But when they are in bloom, you'll see their blossoms with colors that range depending on what the pH of the soil is going to be. So if you see hydrangeas with more of a pink to red bloom, that means the soil is more alkaline. And if you see a hydrangea with a more blue to purple bloom, that means that your soil is going to be more acidic. Talking about our camellias again, we're kind of seeing the back end of our camellia garden here on my right side. And one camellia species that we have here is called the Camellia sinensis. This is the plant that creates the black, green, and white teas that we all drink today. Rounding into what we call the rhododendron garden, you'll see the rhododendrons on either side of me with their bushy appearance and almond-shaped leaves. Most of them are also in bloom. Now, rhododendron is a Greek name, and broken down, it means rose tree, which is pretty peculiar because they are neither roses nor trees, more like bushes or shrubs. Rhododendron is also the scientific name, housing the rhododendrons as well as the azaleas. So that means all azaleas are rhododendron, but not all rhododendron are azaleas. And then moving on either side of us, you'll see these moss walkways, or living walkways, or permeable paths. Many names here. Now, moss is fabulous for filtering water as well as absorbing carbon dioxide, and once established, is pretty resilient to heavy foot traffic, making it a wonderful addition to our garden. On my right, just past this wooden post, you'll see what we call our flowering dogwood. We have many on our campus, and they are known for their white blossoms. Now, fun fact to know is that these white blossoms or white petals aren't the real flower. Those white petals are actually called bracts, which are modified leaves. The real flowers for flowering dogwoods are going to be those small yellow little dots in the middle. And these modified leaves protect those flowers from insects and severe weather. The next stop we are coming to is going to be called our Mos Ezekiel Statuary Vista. This is where you'll find our 400-foot border garden leading from Lake Whitehurst, which you'll see on our left, and it goes all the way to the Renaissance Court, which you'll see on our far right when I stop. It is home to 11 7-foot marble statues depicting famous artists like Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and the only American in the group, Thomas Crawford, who will be on my immediate right upon stopping. Now, something to note is that Thomas Crawford is known for his own sculpture, which he's holding in his arms here. You'll find the official sculpture at our Capitol in Washington, D.C. All right, we are stopping here. Now, you'll see Renaissance Court at the far end if you go up those stairs, and then Lake Whitehurst on my left. I am continuing forward. Now, looking at this large body of water again on my left, this is Lake Whitehurst. It is a reservoir that supports Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake. It holds over 1 billion gallons of water, and it's home to 20-plus species of fish. It's also a part of our boat tours, which we hold seasonally. This year, look forward to those tickets going on sale June 3rd. The next garden I'll be talking about is called the Glade. You'll see it on either side of us here.
This looks like your puzzle.
Now, the Glade is home to some of our secret gardens, one of which being the Healing Garden. We have 30 secret gardens on our campus, secret meaning you will not find them marked on our map. This encourages our guests to get off the beaten path and explore. The Glade is also home to the tallest tree on our campus called the tulip poplar.
That's what we have, right?
So definitely a garden to visit if you want to find some hidden gems. Now, this first bridge that we are going to over is called Cobblestone Bridge. It was phase 1 of our Garden of Tomorrow project, getting a facelift as well as widened to be able to fit our boats. It was constructed from 2021 and finished in 2022. You'll see one of my favorite roses on the edges of this bridge called the Peggy Martins. Now, as I go over this bridge, if you look to our far left here, you'll see a tall tree. This is called a white oak, and this is estimated to be the oldest tree on our campus. Now, notice on this outreaching limb, a crusty little plant there. I'll mention it more here in a second. Now, white oaks are known as keystone species. This means they are the backbone or foundation to ecosystems. And one plant that uses this tree as its host predominantly is going to be that terrestrial plant called the resurrection fern. It gets its name because it can lose up to 97% of its water content without dying, unlike other plants that can only lose around 10%. Alright, we are now on what is called Lawboy Lane, named after the trees that you'll find on either side left and further red scaly bark called Lawboy pines. Now these pine trees are going to be the most common pine tree you will find on our campus as well as out in the wild, and they are the fastest growing pine tree. Lawboy roughly translates to soupy or porridge, referring to their love of growing in wet or marshy areas. This next stop that we are going to is called Baker Overlook, dedicated to Sarah Lee and Isaac Baker, which they actually got engaged at this particular spot in our garden, Baker Overlook. And as a gift, Isaac actually donated a large sum of money in the 90s to have Overlook renovated for Sarah as a gift. Please remain seated. Please remain seated for safety. Other gardens you can get to on my right side here, if you take this path, are going to be our conifer garden as well as Nato Tower. Alright, pausing briefly here. You'll also see one of my favorite views to take a picture of. So I usually go slow, rounding this curve, just for anybody that wants to take pictures on my right side. You'll get a beautiful view of our Nato Bridge, Nato Tower, as well as all the plants in that direction. Alright, I'm going to start moving slowly forward. Now talking more about the Bakers. They were long-time generous donors and visitors of our garden, and upon their passing they had no heirs, so they actually left us what is called an endowment. An endowment is a large sum of money you cannot use all at once, so that means they are still supporting our garden even today. Alright, if you look at the top of Baker Overlook as I am moving forward, you'll notice a funny looking tree. Don't worry, this tree is completely healthy. This is our famous water oak. When we first put this tree in, we constructed a bench around it. The tree became root bound. We took the bench away and realized that the tree built a bench of its own.
I guess we'll see it later.
On my left, all these flowering trees are going to be our native azaleas. They're one of my favorites, or left, native azaleas. They're one of my favorites. Throughout this area on the ground, you'll see that we love to leave the leaves. This is part of our Leave the Leaves initiative. This helps with soil amendment, but it also provides the necessary ecosystem for all of our North American native species. For example, like our Luna moth. And then coming up on my right, you will see two dawn redwoods. They are growing super close together, and we like to call them the twins. Now, in general, dawn redwoods are known as living fossils. That means they are identical to their ancestors from millions of years ago. And a fun fact to know about dawn redwoods is that they were thought to be extinct until they were rediscovered in China in the 40s. Heading to our next stop in our next garden, we'll be going towards our Wow Garden, or our World of Wonders Children's Garden. Now this is a 3-acre plot full of educational gardens, as well as our splash pad, which is open from, I believe, 9:30 to 6. And it's also home to our junior classrooms, holding this year's theme, Garden to Work. Best way to get to the Wow Garden from this stop is by taking the immediate right path on my right side towards the main entrance of our Wow Garden. Alright, stopping briefly here. Alright, continuing forward on our Chinese French tree here. Now these green plaques mean that these trees are the largest of their species in the state. This is based off trunk girth, canopy size, as well as height. We have 51 state champions on our campus, as well as one national champion tree.
Because of daffodils.
Alright, the next couple gardens leading to the Enchanted Forest are going to be inspired by our Virginia coastal communities. The first one is going to be our flowering arboretum, which you will find on my right side here. It's full of our native grass meadow as well as our flowering trees. Now, the grass meadow at its full height ranges over 8 feet tall, and my favorite season is when the goldenrods are in bloom. This meadow isn't just here to support our native species, it's also part of our renewability project that I talked about earlier, helping us decrease our carbon footprint. On my left, you'll see our production gardens. You'll see our kitchen garden, our cut flower garden, and even our apiary. It is run by our master gardeners, and it's a wonderful place to learn how to compost as well as gathering how-to knowledge. The next stop we are coming to is attached to our Enchanted Forest, which is the furthest garden from Baker Hall. It is also our most densely wooded area, having a 3/4 mile paved path, off-beaten paths, and views of Lake Whitehurst, with a mature overstory of hickory, pine, and oak trees. It's also a certified wildlife. It is run by our volunteers. You'll find 20 plus species of native butterflies like the Luna moth as well as the monarch. And you'll also find their correlating plants, which is going to be like passion flower, milkweed, etc. And you'll find all cycles of life, starting from egg all the way to adult butterflies. Stopping briefly here. Now on the left side of our butterfly garden, you'll find some of our coastal redwoods. Not as big as the ones on the west coast, but definitely still a large size. At the back, you'll find our butterfly garden maze, these bathrooms, and a beautiful gazebo.
Sorry, I was trying to not.
Alright, looks like everyone is safely aboard, so we'll continue moving forward.
That's okay. Step up.
Now, as we wave goodbye to the butterflies, we'll be moving on to the next garden I'll be talking about, which is called our Wildflower Meadow. You'll see it on my left. Now, recently it was covered in our cover crop to protect the soil, but it looks like now they're preparing for the bloom season. So here in a week or two, you'll start to see our annuals like cosmos, zinnias, etc. Super excited. Now, our Wildflower Meadow is our dedicated, one of our dedicated outdoor classrooms. Here for the official observation of how a densely packed, colorful, and fragrant garden can attract as many pollinators as possible. These observation classrooms are very important because in Virginia alone, we have over 400 native bees. One of my favorite pollinating plants is going to be these bushy vine-like flowers on the gate here called coral honeysuckle. Of course, again, they are native to Virginia, and they attract one of my favorite pollinators called the hummingbird. Another plant worth mentioning here is going to be on my right side, this large tree You'll see it has large waxy leaves, and when in bloom, it has a large white blossom that smells divine. If you haven't guessed it already, this is going to be our southern magnolia. It is the official tree to Mississippi, and it's also known as a living fossil, just like the redwood. Now, on my right side, off in the distance in the Wow Garden, you'll see one of our new sculptures called Watershed Tower. It is depicting the wetland ecosystem of Virginia, both above the water and below the water. It's made entirely out of repurposed materials recovered from our shorelines. And some of that material was collected by MBG staff. On my left here, you'll see more views of Lake Whitehurst. This specific area is called Turtle Cove and is a hot spot for our wildlife visitors. And you'll see that it's covered. The surface is covered with spattered rock. The next garden I'll talk about is on my left here, called the Virginia Native Plant Garden. If you take this path, it will lead you to the boardwalk that surrounds the outskirt of this garden. Now, this native plant garden is here to depict what Virginia looked like before settlers came. It is all natural, meaning no natives, non-natives, or invasive. And it's also home to 4 native plant communities. That's going to be the Atlantic White Cedar Forest, the Bottomland Hardwood Forest, the Bald Cypress Swamp, as well as the Longleaf Pine Stand. Now, giving more highlights for our Longleaf Pines, you'll see them up front of this meadow on my left. Now, longleaf pines are considered to be the trees that built tidewater, and they are a major conservation project for our garden MVG. Most of these were donated to us in 2019 by IKEA, and they became endangered due to settlers thinking that these trees were fast growers, when in actuality they take up to 80 years to reach full maturity. They are also the tree that creates what are called longleaf pine savannas. These are the most densely populated ecosystem in the world, second only to the tropical rainforest. Alright, pausing briefly here. This will be the last stop before we return back to Baker Hall. Definitely a hot spot for our family visitors. If you look on either side of us, you'll see these barkless trees. These are called crepe myrtles. They are the official tree to the city of Norfolk, brought here in the 30s by Fred Hewitt, who was obsessed with them. During his time, he planted over 3,000 crepe myrtles in Norfolk total. 570 can be found in this garden. They're also known as 100-day bloomers. Something else to note is that we still have a city program that if you don't have a crepe myrtle and you live in Norfolk, you can actually have the city plant one for you for free. If you look close to the canal on my left side here, you'll see these orange speckled trees. These are called lacebark elms. They are the official tree or not official, they are native to China, and they are one of the only elm trees to be resistant to the Dutch elm disease. Alright, I am starting to go over Rose Garden Bridge, where you'll be able to get beautiful views of our canals on my right side. And then if you look on my left, in the Garden Tomorrow area, you'll see our 4th building, called the Beak Building, also known as the Brock Environmental Education Center. This is where we'll hold hands-on programs for our guests and provide hands-on experiences. Alright, we are now back into into our Rose Garden. If you look off to the distance on the right side, you'll see what is called our native tower. It is our tallest point on our campus, being 60 feet above sea level. And it provides a beautiful bird's eye view of the gardens over there. At the foot of it, you'll find our Mediterranean garden. And then further down, touching the right side of this canal, you'll see our subtropical garden. This is where you'll find plants like the century agave, some of our state champion trees like the mimosa, and more. All right. So this is the portion of my tour that I like to send people on a scavenger hunt if they want to. So my favorite rose is in bloom, and I like to send people out to try to find it. Now you'll see that it's very pastel pink in color. It's more of our older roses, so more bushy in appearance and almost wildflower in its look. Very fragrant, smells like apricot, and apricot is in its name. So if you want to stop and smell the roses, I definitely encourage it to see if you can find my favorite rose. Border garden on the other side of the canal. It leads straight into our Sara Lee perennial garden. You'll find lots of pastel colors throughout this area because the landscape artist that designed our perennial garden was inspired by Impressionist art. And if you haven't seen Impressionist art before, pastel everywhere. Now the perennial garden is also home to one of my favorite plants, which you'll see on the pergola off in the distance here. It's very fluffy looking, and it smells divine. It's one of my favorite places to sit to read a book and relax. All right, we are now coming to the end of our tour. My name is Mads, and I was your tour guide today. If you have any questions for me, just wait until we come to a complete and safe stop, and I'll be happy to answer them. If you paid admission today, you do have 30 days to be able to upgrade that receipt into one of our memberships. And if you're feeling peckish, we do have rotating food trucks. Usually you will find Warehouse Coffee, Ben & Jerry's, and then the third truck